In the ancient village of Umuora, where the soil was fertile and the yam barns were always full, there was one tradition greater than all others: the New Yam Festival, a celebration of harvest, of dancing, and of marriage. Every year, men traveled from far kingdoms and neighboring villages searching for wives, and every year the maidens danced. Under the great nuku tree in the center of the village, the elders gathered together. The oldest elder stood slowly and raised his staff into the air. Immediately, the village became silent. Then he spoke. The New Yam Festival begins in 7 days. Let every family prepare their daughters. Let the maidens prepare for the sacred dance. The crowd erupted in joy and celebration. Drums began to sound softly in the distance. Women smiled proudly. Young maidens exchanged nervous glances, because everyone understood what the festival truly meant. Lives would change forever. Among all the maidens in Umuora, 3 sisters were known everywhere: Chisom, Adaobi, and Adanna. They were daughters of the same father, but from different mothers. Chisom was bold and loud. Adaobi loved attention and expensive things. But Adanna was different. Chisom and Adaobi behaved very much like their mother: proud, stubborn, and difficult. They often mocked old village customs and laughed at older women. One afternoon, while sitting outside their compound, Chisom laughed loudly and said,
"I will never marry a poor farmer. If a man wants me, he must be rich."
The 2 sisters burst into laughter. But Adanna remained quiet. Unlike them, she respected elders. She worked hard every day. She fetched water without complaining. She helped old women carry firewood. She spoke gently to everyone around her. And although she was quiet, her beauty was impossible to ignore. Some people in the village said her smile could calm anger. Others believed she carried the peaceful spirit of her grandmother. As the festival drew closer, the entire village began to change. Women prepared large pots of soup and pounded yam. Men repaired drums and decorated the village square. Mothers carefully prepared their daughters for selection. Hair was braided beautifully. Beads were polished until they shone brightly in the sun. Colorful wrappers were brought out from wooden boxes. Because during the dance of the maidens, a girl's future could change in a single moment. Then, finally, the day arrived. Men from distant lands entered Umuora. Hunters, warriors, farmers, rich elders, and princes, each one searching for a wife. Some came riding horses, some came with servants carrying gifts, others arrived proudly with drums announcing their presence. The village became crowded with strangers. Every family watched carefully. Every maiden felt nervous. Then, suddenly, the festival drums thundered across Umuora. Boom, boom, boom. The New Yam Festival had begun. The people danced joyfully. Palm wine flowed freely. Children ran around laughing. The entire village came alive with excitement. Then, the moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. The dance of the maidens. 8 beautiful maidens slowly entered the arena. Their bodies were decorated with traditional designs. Coral beads rested around their necks and waists. The entire village watched carefully. The drums changed rhythm. And one after the other, the maidens danced. Some danced with power, others danced with pride. The men watched closely, choosing, judging, desiring. One rich elder whispered quietly, "That one will make a strong wife." Another nodded in agreement. No one could take their eyes off Adanna. Then a wealthy farmer stood proudly to his feet. Pointing towards Adanna, he declared, "I choose her." Before anyone could respond, a famous hunter stepped forward angrily. "No," he said firmly, "I saw her before you." The atmosphere immediately became tense. Men began murmuring amongst themselves. The drums slowly stopped. Then, suddenly, the crowd separated. A prince had arrived from a neighboring kingdom. Tall, calm, powerful. His presence alone commanded respect. As he walked into the arena, the villagers became silent. The prince looked directly at Adanna, and then he smiled softly. Without hesitation, he spoke. "I choose her." Gasps spread across the crowd. Even the wealthy farmer stepped back quietly. No one dared challenge a prince. At that moment, Chisom and Adaobi burned with jealousy. They had always believed they were the most beautiful daughters in the family. But now, Adanna had captured every eye in the village. Adaobi stared angrily and whispered, "How did she become more desired than us?" Chisom said nothing, but her face was filled with bitterness. Before the night ended, the other maidens were chosen too. Chisom became the fourth wife of a wealthy elder. Adaobi was selected by a traveling trader who already had many wives. Some maidens smiled with joy. Others cried silently inside their hearts, because not every selection brought happiness. As the celebration continued late into the night, Adanna sat quietly near a fire away from the crowd. The prince noticed her absence and walked toward her carefully. He sat beside her gently. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then the prince finally asked, "Why do you sit here alone while everyone celebrates?" Adanna looked into the fire before answering softly. "Because marriage is not only beauty and dancing." The prince listened carefully. Then Adanna said something no maiden had ever dared to say before. "I am not a prize to be won in one dance. I must first know the kind of man you truly are." The entire atmosphere around them became still. In Umuora village, no maiden had ever spoken so boldly to a prince. But instead of anger, the prince smiled softly. Then he replied, "Then let me earn your heart." Adanna looked at him quietly, and for the first time that night, she smiled. And so, the festival that began with dancing ended with something far greater: choice, respect, and the beginning of a new destiny. But little did Adanna know, her true journey was only beginning. Because in Umuora village, beauty could attract a man, but wisdom could change a kingdom.
If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more African folk tales, village love stories, and ancient traditions.